Hello everybody, welcome back to the Two Norries podcast. Before we get into it there, we just want to remind people that we're supported through Danny Donovan at quickminutes.com.
Yeah, Danny's a very good friend of both myself and James. He comes from the Northside as well, and he grew up locally, and he's been a massive supporter of the podcast and both myself and James since we actually began. And he has his own company called Quick Minutes now, and
quickminutes.com is a meeting management application for semi-formal and formal meetings. And look, if you want to know more about that, quickminutes.com, and supporting Danny's supporting us. So if you're interested in that, check them out and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And welcome back to the Two Norries podcast, everyone. And I'm your co-host, Timmy Long, and my co-host, James Leonard.
Hi everybody.
Today we have a very special guest. He's a local Norrie. He's a businessman, and he's also somebody that is helping a lot of people at the moment with his seminars. And he helps a lot. He does an awful lot of stuff as well in the background, and he helps a lot of different organizations. And he's here today to share his experience in life. And he's going to tell us a little bit about what he's doing today. And his name is Paul McCarthy. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Thanks to me. Thanks, James. Thanks, Ronan. Thanks for having me here today. It's been a long time coming. I was meant to be here before, but I'm here today. It's an honour to be here, and it's an honour to be in your company. And just before we start, I'd just like to congratulate Tuvi, what you've done in the last 2 years for the people of the Northside. I grew up with you. I was probably just being a bit older, so fair play to Tuvi. And the highlight for me was Tuvi selling out the Opera House. So big congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And we were actually on, we were in St. Luke's Church at the weekend with Blind Boy as well. So that was an amazing experience. And it was, when you're sitting there with somebody that you actually used to listen to 2 years ago and who helped you along your own journey, because I got some great advice from listening to his podcast. It was amazing, and to be up on that stage even with James, I was up there and I was sitting down with the two of the biggest brains that I know, straight up, right? And two of them are super kind of educated, and they know their stuff, and I would just be listening to the two boys, but I felt comfortable around the two of them because I knew I was in safe hands, because they understood my back, they understood me as well, and it was a great night. We had an absolute great night.
I think why what we do works is because you have the emotional intelligence side of it, the spiritual side of it. Do you know what I mean? You can connect with people on a level that 99% of people can't, and you have an emotional intelligence that you will find it very hard for somebody else to have it. You know, and I heard Timmy talking about his spiritual experience and ayahuasca, meditation, stuff like that, the words and the introspection and all. That's unbelievable insight. But then I would bring intellectual side of it, a bit of theory or something, just to help people understand another side of it. So there's no that's better than this. They complement each other, and that's why we are where we are. And we got another award today. It's our second award this month, Timmy. The Rebel Spirit Awards, sponsored by MBC Financial Investments, and Rowan on the decks was up there accepting the award on our behalf. So how did that feel, Ron?
Strange. I don't want to do it again.
And just because this will be aired now a couple of weeks down the line, but this morning Will Smith popped the head off Chris Rock up on stage, But I was saying to Ron, go up and slap Ty Hickey if he doesn't get. But he didn't slap Ty Hickey. Ty did a great job with that. Just give him a mention.
Well done, Ty.
Well done. We'll horse into it, Paul.
Yep.
For the people that don't know you, we go way back. Who was Paul McCarthy? Where you from? What was it like growing up?
My name is Paul McCarthy. I'm from Hollyhill. Grew up in Kilcairn Close. An amazing place. I loved it. My father and mother did the best for me. We grew up in an area where money was tight. Nobody had much. You'd knock at the neighbour for sugar, for milk. But what one thing Hollyhill had, a lot of people know Hollyhill as Knocknaheeny, the same thing.
Yeah.
And
your estate is about 3 estates up from ours.
Exactly. We're back to back.
Yeah.
So one thing that I had is the community was amazing. back then in the street leagues with Vincent's, out playing rounders, tennis.
Do you remember all the alleyways and laneways and around
in the
Kilkenny
back
and Close and remember OD's shop and remember
That
that?
was mad. That.
Hogan's Lane and
Hogan's Lane up the side.
remember the big house there in Hogan's Field?
We do. And if you go up there and if you were caught up there by them, you'd be killed. So many there got killed going up that lane.
Remember the big gate outside Brunchy's gaff?
Yeah,
There used to be a big gate there, used to play soccer off.
There was a bungalow in there, wasn't
That's
there?
right,
It was,
yeah.
and
That was the shop, wasn't it, James?
No, the shop is over by the back of your gaff.
Yeah,
wasn't
the
it?
back there, but if the ball then goes over the gate, you'll be killed getting it all the time. Yeah, so Cavi used to be there. I remember Derek Kavanagh next to all the lads, God
Different
rest
place
his soul.
today, isn't it?
Way
It's a
different.
different place.
Completely different today.
Very quiet now today, like.
Oh, because they closed off all the alleyways and it's like all cul-de-sacs now. And what I think as well, like in every area is grown up. A lot of people have matured and grown up, and now there's other areas around the city, like let's say, like back in our day, like Hollyhill, Knocknaheeny would have been a very known as a tough and difficult area to live.
Yeah.
Now there's other areas around the city that are getting that because young people go in and they grow up there.
And you made a great point there, Paul, around the lanes and the alleyways and stuff like that. Like when I was growing up, you're a bit older than Timmy's a little bit older than me. You're growing up and you're looking at people drinking on the street and antisocial behaviour. And when you're growing up in an environment like that, it comes a little bit normal. The young people that grew up behind us, they're not involved in that because the lanes was closer, they're not exposed to it as much. And it worked really well for Hollyhill. And Knocknaheeny's transformed now as well. But it makes you think, like, why didn't they do that in the likes of Mayfield? Do you know, when you look at Corablaw, Shannon Lawn, Ballinderry, like there's lanes and alleyways everywhere there. You can walk down the back of houses, there's escape routes all over the shop. I don't know. It's just like, if it works in one area, why don't you implement it in another area? Do you know?
I do know one thing, because in each terrace there would have been like committees. I do know one thing, they fought very hard over the years, because if you go back then, like between the alleyways, there was a lot of drinking, there was a lot of drug use, there was a lot of crime. And what happened over the years, they fought so hard to close off all them alleyways. So it took years of pressure to finally get them closed off.
Remember the tarmac over by our estate?
The tarmac. I know the tarmac too well. What happened to me is that I went from Kilcare and Close. Then I started going up to Arcullen with Brunchy and Derek Kavanagh, all the lads there. And what happened then we went down towards Arcullen with yourselves, with your brother Keith and stuff like that. I remember Dougie, your neighbour, and Paul Lynch, and Paul Lynch's father, played with Grattan. And then I made a step off to the tarmac. And then when I went to the tarmac, that's where things really took off. The abnormal became normal and stuff that we got up to during the day times.
We're talking here around the height of the ecstasy as well, the 90s.
Yes.
Nine times, weren't they?
Back in the 90s, what happened, as you said, like we grew up and I saw people on the road taking drugs, crime. And what happens as a young person, you look up and whoever was the most, let's say, craziest person on the road, for some reason, you'd look up to that person and then you want to become that person. And subconsciously, unknown to yourself, as the years go on, you become that person. Yeah. And so what we had down in Hollyville, it was like the abnormal became normal. Like drink, like people say, when did you drink first? Or drugs? Back in our time, it was just hand in hand. It was normal to drink and take drugs together. Yeah. And then you have getting into Henry's. I remember when Derek Kavanagh was the first of us to go into Henry's. My brother and them would have been before that. But I remember Derek Kavanagh saying to me, "It's just 5 days left." And I said, 5 days left for what? For Henry's. Then I said, "I don't understand." Then when I got into Henry's myself, I was counting down the days every single. Then when we got in there on a Saturday night, it was like heaven.
What was it like?
Oh, stop.
Henry's back in the day, for me, was the best nightclub I was ever in. It was like this. When we were in there first, we had to give ID because everyone would try to go in at 16. My brother used to actually just go in through the roof. Okay? But we give ID. When you get in there and when you just go up the steps, and it was just like peace, heaven. And everyone at that time, it was the ecstasy era. Everybody would have been on ecstasy. If you were in Henry's just drinking, it was just ecstasy. And then you're there for them few hours. And someone you saw on the road that you mightn't like or mightn't talk to, you loved everybody. There was hardly never violence, never nothing. It was just love. And for them few hours, it was just like the world was outside and gone. And you were just there and it was just in heaven. And everyone felt the same. Then for us, that progressed. Because Henry's was just one night. As time went on, sidetracks then popped up. And then we learned we can go to sidetracks on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So then the progression happened from there. And then before you know it, you're out for 5 or 6 days. And that become like a recurring thing. And we all thought it was normal because everyone was doing it.
Were you in school around your teenage years that time?
Yes. At that time, my primary school was Churchfield. and then we went from there into Northmon.
Yeah.
So I was in the Northmon, and in the Northmon, I was doing this hand in hand. At the start, I was able to do it and go to school and go out and do it. But as time went on, I couldn't do it. Getting up for school was difficult. Turning up for school was different. What we done from a young age, we used to go to the early houses like the Wolf Tone and Charlie's. So from a young age, we were going to the early houses. And again, that became normal. I remember going to early houses on a Sunday morning and a Monday morning and getting in the door and just going, I'm safe. I'm here. Because you'd be out for a few days, you'd be coming down off everything, the nerves be settling in, the head be panicking, and all you want to do is get a drink then just to calm down. And I remember, like, an hour beforehand, you could be terrified and full of fear, and then you couldn't tell any of the lads that you're full of fear or terrified, because you had to have the macho image. As soon as you got a pint down, and everything relaxed again.
And the darker the pub, the better as well.
But is there a worse feeling in the world than getting thrown out of a gaff at 6 o'clock in the morning with the crows cawing in the air and sick from ease and an off licence at pub open for another 2 or 3 hours? Yeah. Like, that's a horrible place to be, isn't it?
It's a lot. It's the longest few hours ever. I remember back in many a party when you're coming down off all the drugs and then you start tripping. And there's nothing left to take, and then you're scared to look at the person next to you. You're hallucinating. Your things are going wrong, and it's amazing. You go into that early morning, or someone comes with drink, and you just take the first sup, and for some reason everything's perfect again.
Then you drop another 10 easy.
Yeah.
Away with you then for the day again. Yeah. But that going back to the Henry's thing, that Henry's was completely lawless. It was lawless. There was. I seen some mad shit going on inside in that place. We were about 14, 15 and we used to go inside gate, break open the side gate, go up. Fucking hour later we were crawling along the floor. We wouldn't even know where we were. It was just, it was a real mad, it was like something you'd see in holidays back in the day. No. Henry's was just completely mad.
I remember I was in there a good few times when it was an underage disco as well, you know, so we'd be on before you, like, and there was the R&B room and then there was the dance music room and stuff like that, and we see down in some corner and some fella's hand be down some man's pants and then some fella's jaw be up around his ear over in that corner and stuff like that. But it used to be very violent for the younger group, I think. I don't know, the teenagers always seem to be a bit more volatile anyway.
Yeah, and there were the days of Carol Cox and all them coming. Like, it was a normal
Fish
thing.
Go Deep.
Yeah, to come to the Cork Henry's is well renowned around Europe.
It was.
Like Greg and Shane.
Yeah.
Nirvana famously played there. Kurt Cobain and all them. But you know, when you were out taking these and drinking and stuff like that, you're a young man at this stage. Was it causing conflict for you with your mum and dad, or like what way was things at home at that time?
It was looking when at that age. I didn't really see like the destruction it was causing. I knew I was causing damage, okay? But I was the type of person that when I was out in addiction, I could be back in a party and for the strangest reason, I would get something dropped to my mum's house. Crazy stuff. Like I always financially would have supported or would have put money up because I would have moved out of home young with my wife that I have now. But when I look back at what I'd done, I'd come home at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd have the good intentions. My brother Glenn just would never come home. But I would come home at 3 o'clock in the morning, then I'd go up the window and I'd jump out and go back to the party and not come home for 3 days. So my intention was always trying to get back home. But the fear I put into my mother and father, I was lucky my father wouldn't mind me saying this. My father is 37 years sober. So he would have got sober when I was 4 or 5. So he would have known it. I would have seen people in my house that go to meetings and stuff like that all the time. So, and I would have seen them. But like they would have been going to a different fellowship. But I would have never identified and said I was an alcoholic myself. I would have always said I was a drug addict from a young age, but never an alcoholic, not knowing that drink is a drug. Yeah. And so my dad would have had understanding, but my poor mother had no understanding. And the damage and destruction we done to my mum, I never came home was violent. Yeah. But I never turned up. The worry, the stress, and my mother would be old school. My mother's 71. I never ever heard my mother to this day speak one negative word about anybody. Yeah. She's a very positive and holy person. And so we go for a few days. When I come back, my mum would never shout. But she wouldn't talk to me for 3 or 4 days and it killed me. because I knew what I was doing to her. Then I tried to buy her a present, and I often sent someone in town to buy her the jeans and send it home to her. When I was out of my head, I was thinking, I need to look after my mum.
Yeah.
Like in my family, there's 6 of us, 4 of us are in recovery. So there's been a lot of addiction in the family, and my mother had to put up with all that. So that's something that to this day, right now, I still making amends, and I will be for the rest of my life to my mother, you know.
It just goes to show how self-centeredness addiction is. You know, like it doesn't matter how much you love somebody, you will hurt them like over and over and over again. And it's not that, like some people that don't understand addiction might think like he's just selfish, he cares about nobody but himself. You know, he's cold, and you know. But when you're in it, you do actually feel the guilt and the shame.
100%.
But sometimes you can't control it. Like when you're knee deep in it anyway. It's like you've no control over it until you're coming down or until the party's over, or else sometimes if you're unlucky, you're in the middle of a party and you get a thought into your head and it kills your mood, you know. That can happen too. And then, you know, it's they come down, but and then it's like, oh, I won't do it again, I won't do it again. And then you do it again, and then you do it again. It's just the self-centeredness of addiction, you know, it's a key characteristic to it. Like,
I was there one day, right? And this is, someone asked me once, can I summarize up addiction? And I goes, this is how I can summarize it up. I was working for a company for 15 years, great company. We were delivering drinks all day, soft drinks. Every time I stopped, I was going to the pub, and I was taking getting pints, getting bottles where I could, into the toilet, taking lines, just getting through the day. We were coming back from Tipperary, and he said, like, my name is Paul, but my nickname is Charlie. And he said, Charlie, he goes, you're such a nice person. Why do you have to do this? And I just looked at him. His name was Alan. I said, Alan, you have kids, don't you? He goes, I do. If somebody hit your kid, what would you do? I'd want to kill him. I goes, that's the way I need to drink. And that's the way I summarized my addiction, that I had no control over the first drink. Yeah. And when I drink, something happened to me. And next thing I'm there 4 days, I wasn't an alcoholic or drug addiction, whatever name you put on it, that would drink every day. I would drink. In Hollyville, my nickname was the New Man. From 13 or 14 years of age, I suffered terrible. And I would say after every bender, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. And from a young age, I was getting panic attacks. And then I never understood it, that it was the first drink. And when I took a drink, something happened to me. I always had good intentions, but I'd wake up 4 or 5 days later and I'd say, what are we after doing? And I used to be destroyed over it.
You said something there from a young age, you were getting panic attacks. Do you think the drink and the drugs helped them or made them worse?
My first panic attack, I still remember, at 16 years of age, I never got one. My mum and dad were in Spain. I was missing for a week. I was driving for the same company down to Little Island. I told the driver, stop the truck. I thought I was dying. I didn't know what a panic attack was. And I jumped onto the grass and put my head down, and I held on to her. I thought I was going to die. And that was my first ever panic attack. The drinking, I knew straight away it was the drinking drugs. I was in hospital, not exaggerating now, over 100 times with panic attacks. The doctors kept on telling me every week. I'd go in nearly every week. I was walk around, I think I was getting heart attacks. Paul, you're a lovely fella. Stay away from the drinking drugs. I said, you'll be fine. And it's amazing, when I gave up the drinking drugs, when I was getting sober at the start, I was still getting panic attacks. Then after a few months being clean, they were gone. Amazing.
There's a couple of times there, especially around 17 and 18, we were taking a lot of ecstasy. Not like ecstasy on a Friday and Saturday night, but Wednesday morning, job down the St. Anne's with a bone and wheelie bin, you know. But no, after a few days of it, then the heart would go. And you get a weird one then, you know. And I remember a couple of times being down in the Mercy with my mum, and, you know, just being embarrassed, like, you know, because you're your mum, you're at to be taking drugs, you know, that type of, but like, and, you know, I remember one of the days I was down there, it was after a load of these now, and I was down there anyway, I felt like my heart was going to explode in my chest, and I thought I was going to die. You know the way it is, like. And the doctor said, was saying to me, ma'am, look, if it doesn't calm down in the next 15, 20 minutes, we'll monitor it. We might have to give him some diazepam. And I was like, fuck, my ears pricked then. I was like, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it just shows you how mad it is, you know. Somebody mentioned diazepam, which is Valium for the people that don't know, like, and that's where my head went. Do you know what I mean? It was like the panic was gone already, you know.
You're perfect. Go again.
Those kind of meds really did work for, you know, like even when I was using cocaine myself and ease and stuff, I would always lean to prescribe meds as the thing to bring me back down. Do you know, when you get too high, You know, if you take too much cocaine or if you take too many yeasts, you'd always need to lean towards a spirit, which would be a whiskey or a vodka, and maybe a prescribed meds, which back in the day for me would have been the D10s, the Purple Hearts. There are different things. And when we're talking about this here, no, we're not.
It's just our experience.
Bigging anything up, we're just talking about it for what it was. But it was something, and I always look back and I say, oh, jeez, if I didn't take them or I didn't have them that time, like God, I probably would have died. Yeah. You know. But
the other thing about it is, to me, like everybody in the table here knows somebody that when we were younger, that's not here today. Yeah. And their hearts gave in or whatever, they vomited in their sleep, whatever. This always happens. Like when you think of the amount of amphetamine that you put into your body, the amount of, MDMA and cocaine and uppers, and then we take a load of tranquilizers on top of that. Like that does take its toll on the heart eventually. But for the grace of God, we were hospitalized many times and we came through it. But others weren't so lucky, and that's the terrible tragedy in all of this. Like,
yeah.
It is. I'd say you've come, like, if you're vintage, of your age, there's a lot of people from your era that have passed away.
A lot of people. I have a few very close and dear friends that I would have brought to their first meeting. They'd been friends over the years, and some went abroad, never came home. Some ended it themselves. They couldn't handle the head. And because what happens with addiction, as we all know, addiction, when it gets to a place, it's the head. I think most people come into recovery and they ask for one thing: please, how do you relax this? Because what happens us in addiction, we take stuff and it just kind of calms us for a few minutes. And then what happens when you come into recovery, you want to just fix the head and just come into peace. And what happens, some people, unfortunately, they don't make recovery, they can't get it, they can't handle the head, and then they do it themselves. And that's the unfortunate thing, So it's scary. It's really scary. And out there at the moment in this time, compared to even back in our time, it's got more scarier, unfortunately.
And the drugs are a lot scarier.
A lot harder, yeah.
The drugs as well. But listen, back then, when we were growing up, there was no such thing as social media or phones.
Thank
back
God.
then either. We were lucky. And
it'd be a different story told.
Exactly. And we were very social. We got on, we didn't get on, we fought, we didn't fight. We were on ecstasy, we hugged and told each other we loved each other. There were the times, but no, it's a different era. It's a different era, and it's a very, very strange time to grow up. Because we've so many different platforms where you have to, where people have to look and be a certain way, and a lot of our kids are growing up in that era, and I'd actually be scared for my own kids, because a lot of it is not real, and that's the reality of it. And I think this generation growing up around all this stuff, and James was on about at the beginning about that book Stolen Focus, and he told me about it and I listened to it myself, and we are growing up in an era where we're losing touch of ourselves in a lot of different ways, like our generation now, we're leaning more towards the spirituality side of things and learning about the mind and the emotions and how to be in the present moment, A lot of that stuff is not happening at the moment, It's not happening, and we need to be more firm, I think, around phones and social media with our children, because I see it in my own home.
It's another addiction, like
100%, James. It is, and
sugar is another one.
Sugar,
yeah. Sugar is a huge addiction in this day and age.
Huge.
Can you remember back in the day, right? Like, you would have fiends eating sugar on bread.
Yep.
That's what happened. And if you were going on a school tour, you might get 100 penny jellies, a few bags of potatoes. Yeah. That was it. But we didn't have access to bars. Like, certainly in my house anyway, we didn't have cupboards full of bars and chocolates and potatoes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in this day and age, you can get shit food for so cheap at the moment, and obesity is another epidemic. But we bring it back to your story, Paul.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about what life was like for you in your 20s?
Yeah, well, what I done is in my teenager years, it was a lot of addiction. And then at 21 years of age, my addiction really was at a very high level. And I met a beautiful girl. And today she's my wife, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
And
Jackie.
So I met Jackie, we could say on a Friday, and I moved in on a Saturday. So I moved straight out of Hollyhill into Blackpool, you know, and for me, it was just like more freedom to do what I want. And I fell for Jackie straight away. And I said, this is it. And what happened, it gave me a license for more addiction. And unfortunately, Jackie didn't sign up to that, but I was in the height of my addiction. And I always knew I was a good person inside, but I had no control. And what happened to me then is I went into my 20s, I brought in all the wrong people into my life. I brought guards into my life. I brought guards around my door. And what happened, my addiction, I knew it was getting to a place of no return. And I was starting to get these thoughts and I was starting to question, why am I here? And then for me, a turning point for me was the 23rd of January, 2004. I was sitting inside Charlie's. I was scared of my life. I had a paper. I was scared of the barman, scared of everyone. But prior to this, that week, I'd been in all sorts of fights and troubles. And I was starting to turn on people that I loved the most because I got so paranoid. If you told me that morning I would have been in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that night, I would have said, no way. My dad was looking for me. I had no change of clothes for a week. I walked in home that night. I looked at my father. I said, I think it's time. He rang my uncle and they brought me to my first meeting that night. My uncle did. And I remember going into the meeting that night, listening to a man sharing. And at that stage, I was questioned, was I schizophrenic? I asked my dad to bring me to St. Anne's. And I came
St. Anne's is a hospital for people.
And I came home that night to my dad and he goes, Dad, all I am is an alcoholic. And for me, what a relief. And my journey started then. The next chapter of my life started then in the recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. So
what age in 2004?
I was just turned 25 years of age. I was the first of all my friends to break away into recovery. And I was the first to step out and go down that journey.
What was it like? Because I remember an early recovery for myself, you know, because my friends would have been still involved in addiction at the time, but most of them anyhow. And I found it quite isolating and a little bit lonely and a little bit like as if I was being disloyal, or who do I think I was any better than anybody else, you know, all that kind of inner stuff. Did you have that going on?
I had, as I was the first person, as you said, I was told in AA, like, you know, like you need to stay away from your friends. So like my friends was my brothers and sisters and my best friend Mickey and all the lads, they said to stay away from them. And I said, how can I do this? But you know what? I was so tormented in my head. All I wanted was peace. I would have ran to the moon for what they told me. You know what? I was so beaten to the ground. I was learnable and I'd done everything they said. And I stayed away with my friends for a few years. But you know what? I was a year and a half into recovery. I'll never forget this day. I was driving the truck past good vibes there. Sorry, what's that bookshop?
Vibes and Scribes.
Vibes and Scribes, sorry. We've a WhatsApp group called Good Vibes. I got mixed up. And but prior that morning, I was at home roaring crying. They were explaining to me about getting a higher power into your life. I didn't understand what higher power was. I didn't understand anything. And I was roaring crying. I got on my knees and I asked for help. The pain in my head was unbelievable. My ability to stop my thoughts, I couldn't. I was so fast. I questioned everything. I had no peace. I couldn't sleep. I was losing weight. I lost the ability to have conversations with my friend from a fellow when I was young, positive, outgoing, involved in everything. And something told me, just stop that, man. I went into the girl with tears in my eyes. I said, please give me the best spiritual book you have. She goes, there's a book there called Eckhart Tolle by the Power of Now. She gave me that book. I went home. I remember after 10 pages, I said to my wife, this is what I was looking for all my life. That book spoke about the voice in your head and how to relax that voice. And when I started on that journey, for the first time in my life, it was like a valve just was taken off my head. And what happened, I got this peace in my life. I didn't understand it for a long time, but all I knew was that I was happy, I was peaceful, and my thoughts were after relaxing. And there was simple techniques in that book that helped me connect back with who Paul was. And I knew from that day, for the rest of my life, this is what I need to work on myself. And plus, I need to bring this to people. Because everybody, whether you're in addiction or not, suffer with this voice in the head and this negativity. And when you look around at humanity right now, like the number one sickness that I see in the whole planet is a racing brain. And when you learn how to relax your head and actually observe your thoughts, what happens is you have peace. And the great analogy is this: if I block your eyes, you can't see. If I block your ears, you can't hear. if I cloud your mind with thoughts, you go insane. And that's what's after happening in most of humanity. The abnormal is after coming normal. And people are so caught up in it. If you go back to 20, 30 years ago, we talked to our neighbour, as you said a while ago. We were there, we fight, we scream, but we ask for sugar 10 minutes later. Right now, we're all in a rush to get to the next place. We're all in a rush to get up in the morning. If you get up in the morning, we're brushing our teeth. We can't wait to be in work. We're in work. We can't wait to be home. We're at home. We can't wait to be in the shower. Before we know it, it's nighttime again. And what happens, we're caught up so much in our head that we're actually away from reality. And in Eckhart Tolle in The Power Now, he talks about how to bring that back and you know what? How to enjoy your day. And that's that was the biggest transformation in my life when I picked up The Power Now.
It's a great book, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Timmy put me on to it last year when you started doing the WhatsApp voice messages and stuff, and they started coming along to my phone too. And you might talk to us a little bit about that in a minute, but that was my introduction to it.
It's one of those books.
It's hard to get your head around, isn't it?
At the start,
but you know what I found very beneficial? There's the audible version, the audio version, right?
Yeah, the audio.
And in the audiobook version, there's Eckhart is narrating the book himself, but there's also a lady there that's asking him, can you explain this, Eckhart? Can you explain that? And it was fucking brilliant because she was asking the questions I wanted to ask, and it helped me to understand that one of the key points was what, as you said, like, is to don't get your sense of who you are from your thoughts, because you will think that you're crazy. And I'm listening to In a Word at the moment, which is another book by him.
Brilliant.
And in that, he talks about the schizophrenic. You mentioned schizophrenics. He said, if you think of a schizophrenic, or even like somebody that has a mental illness and they're talking to themselves, and we look at them and we say, oh, he's gone fucking mad. But all he's doing, right, is verbalizing what he's thinking.
Yep.
We all think, but we just don't, some of us don't verbalize it, some of us do. So who's actually, like, who are we to look down on anybody with a mental illness? Maybe they don't have a mental illness at all. Maybe they just verbalize and, you know, but, and another thing you mentioned there was around, ruining your day over stuff. And I think in that book as well, he talks about, like, let's say you wake up in the morning, right? Your alarm is set for 7 and you wake up at 8. And you wake up, right, and you're fucking kicking yourself because you're after waking up late. I know you're going to go into work and your boss is going to kill you. And he says, 8 o'clock in the morning now, and your day is ruined already. About stuff that's after happening in the past, you woke up late, and stuff that might happen in the future about your boss. And it's like, you know, if you just keep your head in the present, it's very hard for a problem to exist in the present moment. And when you start to learn that, then all of a sudden life's become a bit more manageable, doesn't it?
Oh, it's unreal, because you explained it very well. Like, I like to give the analogy, say to some people, if you're going down Patrick Street and you see someone on the road, he might have done something wrong to you 30 years ago in school. By the time you get to McCurtain Street, in your head, you're fighting him, fighting his kids. You're probably at his funeral. You probably say, the next time I see him, I'm going to kill him. And next thing you might see him the next day and you salute him. But your head plays so many stories on you that are not true. And what's very important, what he points out in The Power Now and The New Earth, you are not your thoughts. When I sat back and realized that I am not that voice in my head, and when I can create a distance in between my voice, like a simple analogy is this. Let's say you get a phone call tomorrow for your kid, and the teacher says your kid's after bullying somebody. So that's a thought. Now, there's a tinker of a thought. By the time you get to the next morning, you're probably after arguing with the principal, killing your son, killing the other son, probably saying it's not even my son's fault. Your story will have, you played about 3,000 stories that are not true. By the time you get into the principal the next day, he might say, it's not too bad actually at all. We actually found out more. So what happens is that when you learn to observe that tinker, a presence starts growing within you. And what happens then is that instead of your thoughts controlling you, you now control your thoughts. And that's so, so, so important. And what happens then, there's a presence will grow, and that presence is like, it's like the innocence of a child. So what Eckhart Tolle is doing is bringing you back to that innocence. Because when you're young, right? Let's say now we were out in the front when we were young and Roy Keane scored a goal in the World Cup. We'd be out on the road, we think we're Roy Keane. Okay? If you see Michael Jackson singing when you were young, you start singing, you believe you're Michael Jackson. That's why Albert Einstein said imagination is more powerful than knowledge. But then when we get older, there's none of that. It's like we settle for the norm. We're conditioned by society. No, don't dream anymore. Don't have more goals anymore. But when you start coming into self-development and coming into all this stuff, first when I came into this stuff, people say, oh, that's all that positive stuff. It's not. Because everybody should have a goal. Everybody should have a dream. So like for the audience now, like everyone now just think of a goal and a dream. And what happens then when you start thinking of goals and dreams, the dormant cells inside your body start to wake up. Like if you get up for work in the morning and settle for the norm, your day becomes mundane. And then there's no dream and no goal. But see what happens, a lot of people would get wrong with goals is that they think when they get to the goal, they're going to be happy. It's not the goal, it's the destination, it's the journey. So life is a journey. And life's about, as you said, enjoying the present moment. And when you make the present moment your best friend, there is no problems.
So all this information that we're talking about now is exactly what you learned from the Power of Now back then. And you were 24. Or no, you were probably about 25 at this stage.
I was 25 when I came into recovery, 25, so I picked up the Power Now at 26.
And your life started to change. You started to become more aware. With the Power of Now, the book of the Power of Now, what else helped you massively? I know meetings were very, very good.
Yeah. Well, you said something very important there. With the Power of Now, okay, I learned a lot about who Paul was. I learned I wasn't that voice in my head that was killing me, that I was inside that there was an awareness, and I learned simple techniques. A very good technique for the audience right now is that everyone know, no matter where you are, just be aware your legs are on the ground just right now. But let's all do it together. Just be aware your legs are on the ground and be aware you're sitting on the seat. And now, what are you thinking about now? Your body. Every time you take your attention away from your head and into your body, you're present. So what I got told, it taught me, it was about awareness and about to anchor myself in the present moment. Then as I went on a few years, I met a gentleman, I believe you had on the podcast before, my mentor, Stevie McGowan.
Yeah.
And Stevie McGowan then introduced me to the law of attraction. So then with the goals and the dreams, I would have learned all that. So what for me, I would have met the likes of Bob Proctor. I would have met Abraham Hicks. So what I done over the years is mix two of them together. I heard some people, they love Moji, they don't like Tony Robbins. What I learned over the years is take the best from all of them.
Yeah.
So what I done is learn who I was as Paul. And then when I learned about the law of attraction, if you change your thoughts, you can change your life. That blew me away because your body's made up into two parts. You have your conscious mind. We are the first species through the history of time to have the ability to think and the ability to create. It was never, no species before us ever had that. And what I learned is that your subconscious is connected to the cosmos that operate the universe. So you can apply the laws of the universe and you can actually create your own reality. So the thoughts that we've been thinking for the past 3 months is what's in your life today. The Norries podcast started as a thought. Over 150 years ago, I thought one day that I'm going to put a plane in the sky. And because the whole world is made of thinking stuff, see. And so as you start holding that vision and you believe in that vision, you collapse time. And when you collapse time, your subconscious doesn't understand if you're visualizing something or if it's real. It believes it as fact. So there was a book called Think and Grow Rich. Andrew Carnegie was the richest man in the world. He paid Napoleon Hill for 25 years of his life to study the 500 most successful men of all time. And they all said what I'm saying now. Bruce Lee, when he was nobody, wrote down in a check. Jim Carrey, when he was nobody, wrote down in a check for 10 million when he had no money. And he cashed that years later. Bruce Lee wrote down he was going to be the first martial artist to make it in Hollywood when he was nobody. So all the guys said the same thing. So there's universal laws that operate the universe. And when you tap into them, you actually create your own reality. And when I heard that first, I said, wow. And when I was explaining that to people, their reality at that time was in a very difficult place. So they found it hard to receive that. But my journey, when I first came into recovery, fortunately, I was financially okay. But then by the time I picked up the Power Now, I lost everything. And I was there one day with my son. I had no money. I was struggling to survive. I was behind in the mortgage, but I was happy. And I said, money doesn't make me happy. I believed by the system, I was taught that money was the answer to everything. And then what happened then years later, when I was starting to recover, when I came across the law of attraction, financially I wasn't in a good place. And I says, I'm going to apply these laws in with Eckhart Tolle's information. And for me, the two of them brought me on a whirlwind all over the world. That was crazy. And I learned for myself that these universal laws do operate.
You said something very interesting there about the law of attraction. Okay. And from my own experiences around all that stuff as well, the visualization of what you want, right? You knew how the formula works. Okay. And between your vision, exactly what you want to who you are right now at this moment in time, right? There's time, there's space, right? Explain to people how that space and time gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, I know what it is, and it's about living in that place right now, feeling that emotion, how you would feel when you have what you want. It might be financial freedom. For me, it was peace. I wanted peace. I wanted to heal. I wanted to heal as a human being. I didn't want to feel the way I did around my life and who I was. And I kept visualizing that healthy person walking around, peace inside the head, happy, saying hi to people. And before I knew it, because I kept visualizing that and feeling that emotion of happiness and joy and excitement, that happened. I remember that day walking down the corridor inside in the CIT, explain to people about that.
You said something very important there. And this is, a lot of people get the law of attraction wrong. They believe by looking at The Secret, which is brilliant, by Rhonda Byrne. I think Rhonda Byrne's done amazing things. They believe when they visualize something that it should appear straight away. But there's action. You don't attract what you think. You attract what you feel. You just said that. So everything's about frequency. So as you think a thought, okay, let's everyone just think some good thoughts now. Them thoughts affect the way you feel, okay? That feeling then is a vibration. We call it good form or bad form. So good vibration, bad, low vibration. That vibration emits a frequency out into the universe. So everything's about frequency. So what is frequency for the audience? If I dial into Red FM, I'm not going to get through to 96 FM. If I ring James, I'm not going to get through to Timmy. Wait, different networks, different frequency. So if you're emitting a high frequency, that's love, happiness, joy, peace, and freedom. What happens to a lot of people, they're on a low frequency. What's a low frequency? He said this about me, she said that about me. A bill comes in the door, which is real life stuff, and you're stressing out, going down the road, beeping at someone, breaking a red light. So if you're in this drama and you're in this anxiety, what happens then? You look at the news and the stuff going on. You're attracting that into your life because them thoughts are affecting you, making you feel full of anxiety. So what you need to do is you need to close the gap. You need to close the gap. So you need to start telling yourself a different story. Get up in the morning and say, you know what? I'm going to have a great day. You know what? My life is absolutely fantastic. You know what? And I'm speaking from experience now. I went from financially free in 3 weeks to nothing. I lost everything, okay? And I was so far behind in my mortgage. I was nearly thrown out of my home. And I tell one funny story. Can I tell the story when you said it to me? I was there, okay? And I would have been living in the area with the lads. And I lost everything. And this was back in 2013. I was driving around in a car. People would have thought I was a multi-millionaire and I had nothing. The car was in Cars 1 for a year. I couldn't sell it. And I had to sign on to social welfare, which I was so grateful to get. But every month in the social welfare, I go over with my father. And I was pretending that my dad was getting it. Okay? So I went over one day with my dad. And next thing, Timmy was in front of me. And next thing, I was hiding anyway on Timmy. And I said, oh God, if he sees me here now, right? And for me, looking back, right, it was guilt, it was shame, it was everything. And again, I have nothing against getting on the social welfare. I was there before. But for me, for being a few weeks earlier, for being so financially free and for being here, I couldn't accept it. And next thing, Timmy looked behind me, he says, Charlie, is that you? I go, yeah. He goes, you're the last person I expected to be inside here, you know? Yeah. I never forget it, you know? And for me, right, I was there, as I said, I was grateful to be there and I was so happy that I was able to receive them payments, 430 euros every week. I had 4 kids and a wife and I would have been on the streets without it. And what happened to me then is that I was doing all this law of attraction stuff and I had to visualize that I was on a certain amount of money each week. Well, I was at the bills coming through the door and I said, if this stuff really works now, Paul, you need to put into practice. So what I had to do is this, and this is very important. 10% of the day, I believed I was financially free. I was visualizing me and Jackie at the ATM machine on the holidays going all over the world and everything is brilliant. 90% of the day, I couldn't pay the bills. I nearly lost my home. I couldn't tell my wife how bad it was because I was full of pride. I couldn't ask my friends and family for money. I just couldn't. I was just full of pride and my head was gone. And next thing, 20% of the day, I believed I was financially free. And you, as you said, you have to feel it, you have to believe it. And next thing I got over the tipping point, 51% of the day. Next thing, 60%. And things started happening in my life. Things started manifesting. I got little breaks. And this is where it's very important, action. I remember I went to Thailand to see one girl. I got involved in industry. I remember getting involved in cryptocurrency when Bitcoin was $550. People said to me, it's not going to work. And Bitcoin went down to 170. But I did my homework, did my research. So I traveled all over the world telling people about this amazing thing called cryptocurrency. People didn't know what it was. I was saying, it's not cryptocurrency. The blockchain technology behind it is going to be bigger than the internet. It's huge. And what happened is that I had this hunger and desire. I had no money. I went to Bangladesh from Thailand or across the world to meet 2 people. But I was on myself and my business partner in Poland. I was so hungry. I wanted to do this and I believed I could do it. And what happened then, bit by bit, I started getting the breaks and I started to build myself up. So the magic is when I collapse time completely, if you really believe your subconscious mind. So what is your subconscious for the audience? Your subconscious is part of the mind that does the breathing when you were sleeping. Your subconscious is part of the mind when you were in your mother's womb for 9 months. Who brought you into this world? People get caught up in this power or that power. Can everyone agree on one thing? There's some sort of power that operates the cosmos, that operates the whole universe. Well, your subconscious is connected to this power. And your subconscious doesn't judge. So when you believe you are financially free, your subconscious, that has to be delivered to you. So what happens is, that's why I said, well, the thoughts you've been thinking for the past 3 months is what's in your life today. So if you want to change your life in the next 3 months, you got to change your thoughts today. So when I started holding that vision of my goals and dreams, boom, I brought that manifestation into a reality.
But there's a very, very, very important point you made there as well. For 10% of your day, you felt financially free, okay? It's very important that people understand that there's consistency behind that.
Yeah.
Like if you feel that you're going through your day and you only feel financially free for 30 seconds, that's a start.
Yep.
The next day, it's a minute. The next day, it's 10 minutes. After that, it's an hour. And it's about consistency. It's about keep doing it. And that's how it works. Because if you're somebody that's depressed or you're anxious, instead of wanting to be financially free, visualize yourself as somebody that is not antisocial anymore. You can go into crowds. You can go up on a stage. That's me. That was me. I couldn't say hello to people, and then I couldn't go on a stage and I couldn't talk in front of a camera like we're doing here or give an interview, and I just kept saying, yeah, that's me. And I kept visualizing that, and the next day and I keep doing it and I keep doing it. And it started to happen for me. And it started to happen for me because I kept that consistency up. And every time I go on, before we go on stage or do anything, I'd be crippled with fear. But after James kind of gets out and does his thing, and I kind of fall into it, I'd be fine. But it's all about consistency, Paul.
Well, and one very important part as well, because people, when they hear the money, they get caught up in the money, right? Like, let me explain just in another way. People normally want 3 things, okay? They want money, better relationship, better health. So let's say health. So if you want to be in a better health condition, you can't focus on where you are right now. We have a colleague of ours and a friend of ours. He was 23 stone, okay, and he came to me and he said he wanted to lose weight. So I gave him a simple little technique what to do. But every morning I went over and over him. What weight are you? 15 stone. You're a 15 stone machine. You're a 15 stone. So what happened? He imprinted that in the deeper part of his mind. Was it all rosy in the garden? No. Was there obstacles? See, when you hold a vision and that vision doesn't come true, people think that doesn't work. See, you got to hold the vision. And what happens then, if the universe cannot give you what you're not, the universe is going to give you what you are. So if you believe you are this person, then that manifestation will become a reality. Another place, let's say relationship. If you have a relationship with your wife right now and it's not going according to plan, or with your kids, you're not going to get to a better relationship by focusing on the negative relationship that's there. You got to believe the relationship is right now. You got to live that. You got to role play that. And you be amazed. This is an amazing technique, okay? And everyone who should try this. Let's say you're procrastinating about something at home. It could be cleaning the cupboard, cleaning the boot in your car. Hold the vision for the next 2 days that it's already done. And within 2 days, you'll get inspired action to do that. That works every single time. And that will start then giving you, it's like a little victory. It works. And then another victory, then another victory. And then bit by bit, you'll start putting into practice. So it's not, money's just energy. People get too caught up in the money. Okay? I'm not saying money's not handy, but don't get too caught up in the money. Because if you chase the money, which a lot of people do, the money will go away. Because the money's always in the future then. See, the ego is very good at what it does. What does the ego do? The ego's job is to trick us away from the present moment. It always brings us back to the past and tells us how bad we are, or into the future and creates fear. This is the only moment we ever have. So what is life all about? I say to people, when you look back in this moment in 30 years' time, you're not going to say how much money did I make. You're not going to say how many hours did I work. You're going to say how much time did I tell my wife I loved her or spend with my kids. And so life's about having fun and enjoying it.
And I remember a few months ago, we called up to Paulie's office and my head was melted. You were talking to me about the pain body, which was new to me at the time, but it made sense afterwards. I remember I was living next door to a fool of a neighbour and I'd fierce issues with him. And we were living in a small apartment up in Gran. I hated it up there. I lived in Knocknaheeny and Hollyhill all my life. I never had an issue with the neighbours. But in Gran I did. Nothing against Grannies, no.
Of course,
Just this specific part where I was. I was thinking, how the fuck am we supposed to get out of there? And we'd no savings ratting at the time. And, it just seems like so long, so far away. And then I was saying, I want to buy a 4-bed semi, And so after that, I was like, myself and Gillian said, we'll action something every day to make it happen. It doesn't matter if it's only sending an email or making a phone call, even if it's not answered, we're after action and something. And we bought our 4-bed semi there about a month ago.
Congratulations.
It only took us 6 months. 6 months, really. Now, 6 months of, you said a while ago, ups and downs, hard work and sacrifice and all that, but we got there. We were on the stage with Blind Boy the other night in St. Luke's Church, beautiful venue. But 3 years ago, I was up in the venue watching Blind Boy doing a live podcast with Mick Flannery, a musician from Blarney. And I was with my cousin Caleb, and he'll verify this, right? The podcast was not great. The guest was very shy, right? And I remember saying to Caleb, I was saying, we do a way better job than that. Like, if people are paying to see this, well, like, we've great, I know, I have an interesting story. I know everybody here. And we all know people that have had mad lives and that are doing great things today. I remember thinking, we'd actually do a way better job. And then we were up on the stage, myself and Timmy were Blind Boy. No, it was just a few years later, but it didn't happen like that. Myself and Timmy we had to plan the podcast. Me and Timmy travelled to Whittenbread of the country trying to buy cameras we could buy a here for 400, but if we drive to Dublin we might get it €50 cheaper. But these are the things you have to do, and it's just grind and hard work. And but eventually, like, stuff starts to, the word you use is, stuff starts to manifest, stuff starts to happen, but it doesn't happen by just sitting there reading the book either. You have to action stuff, don't you?
100%. Like, action is the magic word, and like, for anyone listening, and if you're in a time in your life that's difficult, we've been all there, and like, you got to start. So like, just hold the vision for today of the life that you want, because everybody deserves to be happy. When we get up in the morning, there's not one person says straight away, nobody wants to be demented. But what happens, they're caught up in their head. And so when you hold that vision of your dreams, just put in the actions. You said, do something every day.
Because you keep it in the day then.
Exactly.
Rather than like, I'll never get the house, because like the deposit is the killer, right? Because you need a lump sum, and for people in this day and age, cost of living, a lump sum is hard to get. But when you break it down to the day, I'll action something today, you'll get there. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with the podcast. Like, this time last year, we were a million miles away from selling out the Opera House. Do you know what I mean? We weren't even thinking like that. But you action something every day, right? This week, no, who's the guest this week, right? And do you know what I mean? And like, what's going up on the social media today? And that's all you have is today.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you don't like, and maybe down the line, we might get Ron and say like gold headphones, and we might fucking have gold microphones. We might be financially stable, and maybe like people contribute to us through the Patreon platforms, including yourself. And that's what makes it all worthwhile, and that's what makes it all happen. But I'd love to be in a stage down the road where we didn't need that, and we had excess cash that we could give back to causes and stuff like that, So
before we get taken away from anything else, there's one very, very important aspect of your story, and I think you have to talk about it, which is relapse. Okay, right. You were off alcohol and drugs for a number of years. 12 years. And you went back drinking.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I was very involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. I never mind breaking my own anonymity, but I would never break anybody else's. and I was very involved. And without Alcoholics Anonymous, I wouldn't be here today. And I'm forever grateful. But I gave up the drink when I was 25, and I was very close to my sister Yvonne, and we were together and very, very close. And I started having chats about going back out there. And after 12 years, I said, you know what, I was young then. Maybe something different.
Yeah.
And I was in a meeting that week on a Monday, knowing what I was doing. And I would have been very active in the fellowship. And I would have been very close to a few people. And that Wednesday, I picked up a drink. I knew what I was doing. I didn't go insane. And I said, what was all that about? And for the first 6 months, I thought I made the proper decision. And within 9 months, I was back to where I was when I was 18 years of age. I couldn't believe it.
Even worse.
Worse. My work at this stage was travelling all over the world. So I was able to, lucky enough, hardly do no drinking in Ireland, so my kids didn't see it. I had one daughter, Abby, never saw me drinking. And then when I went out, she did a few times, but it brought me all over the world. It didn't matter what country I went to. I was in Brazil, Nigeria, Cambodia, Vietnam, every single part of the planet I ended up in the same neighbourhoods, doing the same things. Got pumped one night. I was taking drugs, and I took the wrong drug. I didn't even know what I was taking. We were out for 7 hours. I got pumped. Prior to that, I was doing a presentation to the Prime Minister of that country. I had all the government officials in a presentation, and they all signed up to the deal I was doing. A few hours later, we were taking drugs, and I got caught up in harder drugs. And then we took something that I never took before. I didn't know what it was. And I went out for 7 hours. I was completely gone, and I had to get pumped. And they couldn't bring me to hospital because my name would have been known in the area. So it would have been on the news. So they had to bring in, I never forget, they brought in 3 girls, and I was losing my memory. And I remember Jackie saying to me in my head, when you have the flu, you don't take anything. So what happened is that I was with 2 colleagues in Poland. They were in another room dehydrating, and they thought I was okay. So after being 7 hours out on the floor, they came in. It was a few hours later, I was on my own, and my memory was going. And I swore, like, if you looked at for me from the outside, financially I was in a great position for my work, what I was doing, but I was starting to fall apart inside. And then when my memory was going, they were just about to bring me to hospital. And what happened is I just, whatever I said, don't. And I just started coming around, and I swore I would never ever take anything again.
I remember. I wasn't long out of prison at the time, and I met you. We met each other in a meeting, local meeting in the Northside, and I remember after a while there was a bit of talk of maybe going back out having a drink, you know, and I knew that was wrong, you know, but I also knew that you had your shit together. You know, because you were grateful that to give a bit of advice and to talk to, and you always seemed like you were there. You had your wits about you, but I did question your sanity at that time because, like, I knew for anybody to go back out and have a drink, especially after 12 years, it could be detrimental. But what happened to you helped so many different people because of where you were in your own life and how you looked from the outside to the rest of us, and then to go back and have a drink and to drug, like it was for the rest of us. Yeah, fucking hell, you know, it shows the power of addiction. I know, right? And it stopped me from ever having a thought like that, going back and having a drink, you know, because there's no getting away from it. And
when I was there that time, right, in this part of the world, right, I said I'd never do it again. I came home a week later. My brother won't mind me saying this. My brother tried to take his own life, and I was lucky that my best friend Mickey was there, and we were able to get Glenn back, right. And my brother I was very close to my brother, and I said never again. That was all very close. A week later, I was in a different country. And I was out of my head again. And I just knew at that stage that I was losing all control over everything. And then my journey was starting to come back, and I knew I had to try to get sober and clean again. And but I was on the verge of, like, everything was getting worse and worse and worse. And you said, like, I went back out. It was a shock to a lot of people. But me getting back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
There's huge amount of information and learning there now for people, so I just want to dissect it a small bit. We all know, right, when a relapse happens long before you pick up the drink. Can you give us a bit of insight as to what life was like for you and what way your thinking was in the months and weeks leading up to the first drink for the relapse?
Yeah, I came across, as I said, really about Eckhart Tolle, and I came across all this information, and spiritually, I was in a very good place, and I was very contented in myself. And this is the big lesson, and I'm glad you brought this up. Before I drank, I thought I was after getting so spiritually well, and I started listening to Abraham Hicks a lot. Not Abraham Hicks, I love her, nothing against her, and she started explaining there's no such thing as addiction, and I really chewed on that. And I says, if I can go out and drink, I was very young then, I think I'd be able to do it. I had a lot of discussions with my sister about it, and I was saying, I think I could do this again. And so getting up there, I kept on fascinated about it. But what caught me as well is my lifestyle with my work. When I traveled all over the world at work, there was always parties, there was always champagne, there was always suits. And I was the only person. I worked the hardest out of everybody in the company. And I was like, the poor me came in. Lack of meetings. Yeah. Big one. Lack of meetings. It's not connected the way I was connected before. Putting money in front of meetings. Chasing the dollar. And then, unknowns to myself then, I had a drink in my hand, and I'm a salesman. And I was able to justify to a few people that I was okay and I wasn't an alcoholic again. And I convinced a few people very close to me that I wasn't. And then the minute I drank, every time, and this is where the power was, every time I had an urge to drink, I got on a plane. And I went away and worked as hard as possible. I walked through it. And financially, I was doing very well. Probably the best I've ever done in my life. And that's what confused me. But I tell you, I was the loneliest person on the planet all over the world, trying to come home to my kids and my wife after being missing for a week, and my head gone, arriving in different airports. And I couldn't believe the progression of addiction.
What was your relationship with your wife like at the time?
It was towards the end. She was very supportive of me. Towards the end, it got very difficult because they would have been around me then a few times when I was drinking. My daughter would have seen me a few times drinking. My son would have seen me a few times drinking. I was losing, and the companies I was doing, they saw me a few times drinking, and I was slowly but surely losing it, and I couldn't stop it anymore. There was arguments, there was commotion, there was drama. And then I'd be saying things if I was drunk, then I'd justify it all. And so that relationship was falling apart too.
How long were you back out drinking for?
I would tell you when I drank. I drank after, I was over in Vegas, the Conor McGregor and Chad Mendes fight. And I came back and I drank about a week after that, August 2015. And then I got sober. My last drink was with a friend of ours, Timmy. And it was out for a few days in the summer of 2019. My last drink. So in between that, I was in and out of meetings all through the years. I kept on trying to get back. I had one dream before I drank, that I was inside a party telling people I used to be well before, and no one believed me. That became a reality in Asia. I was telling people once that I used to be sober, no one believed me anymore because I was in such a state. Yeah. And then when I got back the last time, whatever happened, something changed. I just said to myself, I'm going to give this a good shot. And then the next chapter of my life then started from there. I walked away from all that work. I walked away from, you could say, in the peak of my career, financially. I walked away from everything to come home to my kids and family. And then organically, I started doing stuff back here then that I always wanted to do anyway. So looking back now, it was divine intervention. I don't know what, but I'm just so blessed to be a part of what's happening now.
And today you have your own company, you're still a successful businessman, you have some of your family members employed with you, you do seminars where you give back your knowledge and experience to others, not through the medium of any fellowship, but it's just you're off your own back, like. And you went a bit viral there through the WhatsApp voice notes that you were sending out, the TikToks and stuff like that. But what's it like to have people look up to you now, and if people come to you for advice and stuff like that?
Yeah, listen, it's humbling because what I wanted to do after the experience I had many years ago, I wanted to give back to the people of the Northside. It was something inside me. I wanted the people to see who Paul McCarthy really was, because I had a difficult event years earlier, and it all happened by default. a good friend of my 17 he's Norries. He had dyslexia, great friend of mine. And what happened? I was trying to get him to a meeting, right? And we had a family group, and he asked me, "Can you put that positive message that you give to me every day?" I said, "No problem." After a week, he said to me, "Paul, do you mind if you break it down? I don't understand Abraham Hicks because she talks about vortex and stuff." He goes to me, "Do you mind if I send it to a friend?" I said, "No problem." Then I sent it to my wife. And before I know it, was going to thousands of people all over the world every day. And because I come off social media a few years earlier, people started asking me, "It'd be great to see a face. It'd be great to see someone." Then my sister, who's been a huge part of my life, said, "Will you please teach the stuff that," because when my business, the stuff with the law of attraction, I would use that in every single company I had, but I had a product. Yeah. And that helped me to get to huge places in business all over the world and helped me to have some huge highs. And what happened then, she goes, "Will you do a seminar in the office?" And what happened one day, I didn't want to do it. She goes, "Please do it." And we had 22 people. I had no script. Timmy, you were at the first one. I was up and spoke. And then what's after happening from then to now, the challenge I have now is in the office, I can't fit the people. There's so many people coming. And what I love about it is this. It doesn't matter if you're on addiction or not. What I learned over the years, there's lots of people who have no addiction. If you're in addiction, you're spoiled. There's so many meetings. But if you've no addiction, what I've learned is most people can't handle this voice in their head. So what we do in the seminar, we give them tools and techniques how to relax the voice in their head. And what's after happening now, that's gone viral in its own sense. And we went to a few hotels recently as well, and the crowds are gone insane.
Just clarify, it's free as well.
We don't do it as a business. Yeah, it's completely free. And then what happened recently, people saying, "Listen," because they were getting the voice, "We'd love to see a face." So for the first time in a long time, the same person was Roy was in hospital, unfortunately this time with COVID. And next thing he said, "I had a vision that you were on TikTok." And I goes, "You know what? Because I think the voice notes," I said, they done their part. And then I was on TikTok a few months ago. And now that's having the same effect, going crazy. We were on the radio there recently with it. People wanted me to come on and talk about that. And why I think people are enjoying it is no different with the Norries podcast. Why do people love this? Two people from the Northside who lived it. You were there through addiction. You turned your life around. Yeah. You've got degrees back in college and you walked the walk. And for myself, I've been through a similar journey. And what happens is that what I see, people see somebody from the North Side talking about law of attraction, talking about they can identify with someone here. Like my idol is Edgar Tolley. But people saying we can identify with someone from where we're from. Yeah. And what they love about it is when they come to the seminars is that they go home after 3 hours and they're able to have tools how to live. Because we talk a lot about the head. We always say the seminar's not about money. If you make more money on the back of a seminar, but the tool's fantastic. Yeah. The seminar's about one thing, about peace of mind. But now the TikTok is starting to go crazy. So at the moment we're talking about going back on social media. And we'll see where that journey goes. But it's a thought at the moment. Yeah. So we might explore that more.
One of the things about the seminars, my brother Keith would have went to my mum.
Your mum, yeah.
You could walk up to my mum's gaff now, she'd have Eckhart Tolle on YouTube and the telly. That's like, isn't
That's unreal. I think there's a very important thing there as well. You taught me this a good bit back because of, you learnt this in your own, like from being a businessman, right? From being up here, and then being down there and being up there. And it was always the same thing. You said, like, you said, anytime you were in business and you had a problem, you'd start, if something wasn't going wrong and you were doing very well, something didn't go wrong, you start focusing on the problem and you'd lose track and you'd lose your path. And believe it or not, that was something that I really needed to hear back at the time. Like, so I used it in a different angle. I use it in my life, I use it in my life as in my well-being. So anytime I was just keep going, I'd have my vision, wanting to be well and everything, anything. And I always use this analogy when I'm speaking about, say, if there's a problem comes into my life and I'm on my path and I'm walking my path and something comes here or something comes here, I always say it's like the horse with the blinkers on, and whatever comes here hits me, I feel it, but I don't focus on it. I don't stop my life and stand still and go into the poor me and be pitiful to myself, and dwell in that. I pick myself up, I feel whatever I have to feel, and I keep going. And that helped me so much.
It's powerful too.
Explain it a little bit.
Yeah, because what happened to me was when I went back out into the world and in the business world I'm talking about now, I was very good at making money. but I work so hard to make money. When I make money, and it'd be a considerable amount of money, I'd lose it all. And so I was doing the law of attraction. I was making all this money. I was working harder than anybody I know. But then I was broke again a few months later. And then I was there once, and I never forget, I came into a few pound, and I read a book called The Science of Getting Rich by William Wattles. And I was over with my wife. We were over in Spain or Portugal, one of the place anyway. I looked at Jackie. I go, I'm after figuring it out. She goes, what? And this was 2015. And it was before I went over to the Mendes-McGregor fight. She goes, what did you figure out? I goes, all the years when I got to the top of each company, I says, when I got to the top of the company, I start focusing on the problems. But life is meant to be problems. It's not the problems, it's your reaction to the problems. So because the next time I get to the top of a company, I says, I'm just going to focus on the positive. It doesn't mean I don't deal with reality. And what happened to me then, the next opportunity arose for me. And I got to the top of that company, and I got all awards, European best sales and stuff like that. Problems started rising in the company. And I caught it, and I goes, And instead of being caught up in the drama, I did deal with the drama, but be there for a day or two, not 2 or 3 months. Next thing, another opportunity arose for me. And next thing, the same with that company after a year, there was stuff going on. And what I found is that the problems were there, but I started holding my vibration, my frequency at a higher level. And I started staying there. And what happened from that day to this day, I've never ever lost everything since. And what happened, I was able to build. And what's something very important, I think, to talk about here is this. I was able to build residual income. We were doing a retreat there recently, and someone asked me, he went to college, and 4 years of college, he didn't understand residual income. And I think this should be taught in schools, because this is what residual income is. And I think everybody should be taught this from a young age. Everyone starts with a job. Each week in that job, if you save some money. Okay, job is not residual income, because you stop working, next week you don't get paid. Use that money then, either to invest in a crypto asset, stock market, property, or a business. What happens then when you use your money you're making to invest in other businesses? Now you're creating residual income. And I was at a seminar one day, and I heard that as well. And I said, Paul, every time you get to the top, when you lose the money, you're in one business. Mm-hmm. So what happens in my recovery in 2015, I started, let's say I was involved in crypto, started getting involved in the stock market, started getting involved in property, started in gold and silver. So what happens then, you're actually building residual income. And that's what we do in the seminars too. We teach people about residual income. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about your head. It's about building residual income. And over the past year, we have people who have multiple businesses. We had people on the social welfare. That's why I always talk about social welfare. And I always talk wherever I go in the world about Knocknaheeny. I'm very proud where I come from, is that it doesn't matter where you are in your life right now. If you believe in yourself, you can open a business. Because what happens when you change your belief and change your thoughts, the universe starts opening up to you. So we had people who had nothing a year ago now have 1 or 2 businesses. We had people who had nothing a year ago now are in a financially better position. But not everybody will get there, because people will make mistakes along the way. And that's one of my biggest joys, seeing people coming from a place and see them evolving and see them growing spiritually. And we have one man, he's amazing. He was actually the bartender for where I drank many years ago in Temple. He comes to the seminars, And I was talking to him after the seminar, and he said, Paul, he goes to me, this seminar will do me for another week. And it's not about financial. Mm. He goes, the peace I get from each seminar does me a full week. He goes, when I heard you doing a seminar this week, he said, the joy in my face was there for the whole week. And that's what I love most about all this stuff. You're helping people from the north side of the city. I know it's not just north side. You're welcome from everywhere, wherever you are, just to be a better person.
Are the seminars ongoing at the moment?
Yeah, they're, right now I do them. I used to do them twice a week, but the demand got so big, I couldn't have had the time for it. Right now I do them about twice a month. So they're every second Wednesday at the moment in my office. Yeah.
And do they have to book or just rock up?
Yeah, they have to book in, and they'll probably look, how can they get in contact with me? The best way to get in contact with me, my sister has a WhatsApp group, right? I won't give out her phone number here now. What you do, they can send me a message on TikTok. The only social media platform I have is TikTok, okay? And it's can I say my username in it? Yeah?
Of course you can.
It's Hello My Friend PMC.
We'll put that in the link anyway.
And if you send me a message, Yvonne then will add you to a WhatsApp group. That WhatsApp group is not a spam group. We get loads of messages. When there's a seminar or a retreat or anything that comes up, she'll post in there. You just tick back a box that you're going or you're not going, and that's it. If they don't want to be on the WhatsApp, they'll get my address of my office. My office is up, I just said, my office is up in Westlink Business Park, up there by Northside Glass. Yeah. They're on nearly every second Wednesday. We open the door at 7 o'clock to get a cup of tea, a bit of chocolate. They start at 7:30 to 10 o'clock. And afterwards we have a cup of tea as well. But they have to book in before they come because of the numbers.
The numbers, of course.
And I just want to say there, like, I've seen so many different people change to go from people that are destroyed from addictions and their mental health, and they just had no confidence, and they suffered socially, and from going to the first ones and seeing these people and going back a few months later, I've seen changes in people, and they will blow your absolute mind. You know, people that wouldn't talk before and now they're talking openly, they're away from alcohol and drugs. So this stuff works, and I on behalf of everybody that has came through the seminars and done well, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And I mean that because I've had family members as well that have benefited from those seminars, and outside of the seminars you do a lot of back work in the background. I won't talk about it now because I know you're a private man in that sense, but I know you do an awful lot of charity work in the background, and you help many people, not just in this country but in other countries, and all the people that know you will understand what I'm talking about here. So fair play, and I think recognition should be there at some point. I know you're not somebody that likes it, but well done.
Thank you, appreciate it. And I say one thing about people being changed. One of the biggest changes I've ever seen in my life is something that's very close to my heart. Is my brother well ago when I shared, because I shared something very traumatic. So it's good to share the success story of that. Yeah, my brother was in out of all of us in the Northside, there's a saying that if Glenn McCarthy can do it, anybody can do it, you know. And my brother was like, it was a very difficult case. He was, you know. My dad said to me one day, he was like 30 years sober, he goes, Paul, he goes, I don't know what we're going to do. I've never seen anyone like him, my brother, you know. But we always knew there was good in him. My mum and dad never threw him out, you know. And that brother today went up to my mentor, Stephen McGowan, there over a year ago, 2 years now, I'd say ago. And we didn't, no institution would take him in Cork anymore. And no psychiatric hospital would take him anymore. And we were all in fear for his life. I called over to his wife-to-be. He's getting married on the 23rd of April.
Congratulations.
And I said, would you go up to Stevie? And he said he would. Stevie said he'd come up to live with me. Stevie looked at him and said, I see an elite athlete in you. Glenn has been running since he went away. One of the charities we were involved in, it was actually out in Belarus. Unfortunately, we can't go to what's going on at the moment. And it's for orphanage kids out there. And the charity was struggling over COVID. And my brother still went out and ran that marathon. We all went out to support him when there was no crowds on that. And the back of my brother got injured after the first start of it. I actually went in with him, and we couldn't get videos with him. It's amazing how the universe works. So he was cursing and shouting and roaring because he did a 20k with Stevie a week earlier and blew his leg. And he was cursing, saying, I would have done it only for him. And he kept on losing the head. So I kept on getting Stevie to ring me and distracting Glenn. So Glenn actually went around the whole day full of pain. He was in pieces. And I started taking videos. Glenn, this is for the kids of Belarus. And then he had to change stage straight away and talk. But we got through the videos went viral all over the world. The charity that year raised the most money it ever raised before. So when people tell me nobody can do it, my brother, people gave up on him all over the city. Every institution gave up on him, and everyone gave up on him. But one man didn't, and one man said, come up to live with me. And that man changed his whole life, you know. And he's back down here now. He's getting married. He's getting married next month. He's after inspiring so many people over the Northside. He just finished writing his book on awareness, and his story.
That is a book that you
read. Like, you know, like there's no hopeless cases out there, like, you know, and we've all been testament to that in our families and stuff like that. So like, that's very important. And that would have come in the back, not just what I'm doing, what's going around the whole city, because everyone's doing their part. What James said in the last one in the Opera House, I was actually at a retreat. I said to James a while ago, and you know the time I had for 2V, you know, and I was at the retreat and I got the news of the soul out in the Opera House, and I got the video sent to me. And I was talking about success memories. I goes, look at this. I give a big story about yourselves, what you meant to me. And I put up the success story. And then James said, this is not a podcast. This is a movement. And I looked at everyone in the room. I says, you're all a part of this movement. Remember that? Said the Norries podcast started, right? There's so much after starting on the back of that. So there's the ripple across the whole city the Norries podcast, the bit I'm doing. Scott started doing his meeting. My wife started a woman's meeting. There's so many people doing so much stuff, and the ripple. So like when you come into the Northside now, if you're not in recovery, there's something wrong.
I know.
Before when you didn't in recovery, there was something wrong. So, and what I love now is the meetings. Now you don't have to be in recovery. So there's a place for everyone. So it's great to be a part of what's happening, you know.
No, there's great stuff happening, and it is great to be part of it, and it's all positive because we were, you know, like, and to wrap it up, like we were, you know, drugs and crime and all that, you know, but now we're all positive people in the community, and people look up to us, and people have respect for us, and people come to us for help and advice, and that's better than any money. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're able to give back to your community and hold your head up high. And it doesn't matter how, you know, like awards are great and all, Opera House is great and all, but all you want is for your own people to respect you and to accept you, you know.
And for them to get well.
Exactly.
From to have what you have.
Bring them with us.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a pleasure talking to you, Paul.
Yeah, and can I just finish up with one thing? Because like one thing that like that I'm here. I'm so glad and honoured to be here to share this conversation, because I've been procrastinating about this for a long time, as you know. It was a fear of mine to come back on the platform to go on social media because I've been off for so long. But I want to say one thing, you know, like I'm out there doing the seminars and doing the voice and all that, but I would be nothing without the people behind me.
Yes.
So I want to give a big shout out like to my mother and father, right? But like without them, like, you know, I wouldn't be able to do this. My brother Glenn, my sister Nicola, sister Yvonne, Mickey, who I always call my family. Mickey's like my brother, and my wife, who's at home when I was traveling all the world, and my son Dean, my Abby, Mackenzie and Evan. I want to give a big shout out to them, because without the people behind me, I couldn't do what I'm doing. So my support network has been amazing. So I just want to give a big thanks to them and how much I love them. And thanks, lads.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi, everybody, and we see you all soon. God bless.
Slán.